Before we go too far, before we even get into questions and answers, which I know everybody wants to hear, I thought it would be a good idea to just recap what the Four Lakes Task Force is about, or how it formed. And Joel is going to be the leader in that discussion. And then I'm going to talk about Secord Lake Association and how that came about and our involvement. So then we'll go to the questions and answers. So I'm going to turn it back to Joel. He's going to talk about the Four Lakes Task Force.
So the Four Lakes Task Force was organized and became a delegated authority for the Midland and Gladwin County Commissioners in 2018. The Four Lakes Task Force was looking at our Four Lakes system, which you can think of as a large drain system with each of the dams in the Four Lakes. And it became apparent that there was probably an underinvestment in keeping up with the maintenance and the requests made by FERC as far as additional spillway capacities. And they became very concerned about that. So in their discussions with the counties then at that point, this is a huge project, and they decided that they would have the Four Lakes Task Force be the delegated authority. So the first thing they did was to get together once the commissioners again both voted on that, and their elected officials. So the delegated authority came into being, and they began working on a way to obtain ownership of the dams on the Four Lakes, and of course the lake bottoms that are owned by Boyce. So if you're a private owner with a lake bottom, that's not something that the Four Lakes Task Force is looking to purchase. They're strictly focusing on the lake bottoms that are owned by Boyce. So the Special Assessment District came together. There were a lot of hearings, multiple public hearings on that, where people had a chance to come in and speak. Also, there was in the court, in Midland Court, that they were filed in Gladwin and Midland County. The courts decided to have it out of Midland County, and people had the opportunity to go into the courthouse and speak in favor of or not in favor of at that point. And then, of course, the decision was made by the Midland Court that Part 307 would be able to be a special assessment district, and tied to that district is, of course, the court mandated lake levels. So before that, the lake levels were decided by FERC, and should the power ever not be on the lakes, there would be no lake levels set for our lakes. And basically that means we might not be entitled legally to have lakes, but that's one of the beautiful things about the Special Assessment District, is that we now have those court mandated lake levels. So we continued to progress and negotiated a purchase price, and we're within days of signing the final agreement. And of course, that's when the flood occurred. Okay. That changed everything.
Yeah. Thanks, Joel. I'll tell you a little bit about the Secord Lake Association then. As you know, the Four Lakes Task Force, which Joel just talked about, is made up of volunteers from each lake association on the Four Lakes. Well, Secord at the time did not have a lake association, so we were told it would be a good idea to form an association. And so with the help of some volunteers that came forward, and by the way, which is now our board of directors that were elected in the last year's election, we have an association. We're about into it about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half now, and our membership's growing, which is good. Dues are a simple $25 a year per household. You get one vote, or $100. We have a program where it's $100 for 5 years because we needed some money to get started, and we're still doing that. And again, that gives you, you're entitled to have, because it's a household, you're entitled to have one vote. We hold an annual meeting in August that has, we elect our board of directors, and we plan to do that this coming August. Every association member has a right to vote in that or nominate in that. And there'll be a lot of more information coming out on that meeting. We're again, unfortunately, have to do this virtually, and we have to have a vote virtually. So we're working on that, is all I can say. I have a committee trying to figure out how to do this properly. And but our dues can be paid electronically through our website, or they can be simply mailed into our Secord Lake Association. We have a P.O. Box 176, Gladwin, Michigan 48624. And that's that. The purpose of our association is actually to be a consolidated voice for the common good of our lake community. And that's why we formed. We're not a homeowners association. We just, when we had programs actually set up, normally in a normal year, we would have open meetings from April till October, once a month, and we have programs set up that are of interest to our lake community. But since the COVID, we haven't been able to have public meetings, which is creating a huge problem for everybody, not just us. And then, of course, the flood happened, and now our focus is just simply to get our lake back. And so it's difficult to communicate with this format, but we're doing it. I have to thank Sandy Secora for helping us tonight with this. We're using her IT skills, and she's putting in many hours, and we appreciate that. We have a website, we have an email address, and we also have a Facebook page, and we're trying to use those to reach out. So our association, the main purpose right now, our association has 2 members that are represented or on the Four Lakes Task Force. And those right now are myself, Phil Dast, and Carl Kerr. Now, as everyone knows, Carl has recently sold his house on the lake, no longer lives here. He has agreed to step down. And just recently, our Secord Lake Association board has appointed Chuck Secora as the other representative to the Four Lakes Task Force. And right now, we're in a transition period. Carl is transitioning out, and Chuck will be transitioning in. And that's about it. I think we can move on with Q&As, and how we're going to do that. I think Rita's going to ask the question, and either Joel or I or both will try to answer them. So go ahead.
Okay, so just so everybody's clear, I took the questions and I tried to group them by type of questions. So these questions that I'm going to be asking right now are about condemnation and dam ownership. Also, folks out there, if your question is not asked tonight, that's because it's a redundant question that was answered via Dave Kepler's responses to another question that was asked during our Saturday meeting. So you can look for those answers in that document. Okay, let's begin. Why does the Four Lakes Task Force need to secure the bottomlands from the people that still own their bottomlands?
I'll let Joel answer that. He's our commissioner in Gladwin, and he can answer that probably better than I.
Yes, in the condemnation process, which of course is to take private ownership of the dams and the lake bottoms that are owned by Boyce and to move them into public ownership for the counties. The only properties that are listed in the condemnation process, and all the commissioners had a chance to view each one of those properties, they're all Boyce properties. So if you're a private owner and you own your lake bottom out to the middle of the river, that is not going to be involved in this process. And you need to have the lake bottoms if you're going to be running the dams because of flowage, from what I understand. So that's why that's part of the condemnation process.
Okay, so who exactly will get eminent domain? And doesn't it have to be a government entity?
Well, again, the condemnation process of necessity is designed to take the private property and place it into public property. So the counties of Midland and Gladwin County will be the owners of the dams and of the lake bottom properties.
Okay. Does the county take possession of the bottomlands? And if we have to pay $15,000 per home, we should get riparian rights that Boyce holds now.
Well, the county, again, will be the ones that will own them. Taking possession is a pretty strong term. They're hopefully going to be filled with a whole lot of water in the not too distant future. And the number $15,000 is not a number that I'm familiar working with. So there's a lot of numbers that have been thrown around. on Facebook and that. The Special Assessment District will be working hard on the methodology. Obviously, it's changed a lot from the original numbers that we were looking at because of the May 19th flood. So they're working hard on that methodology. It's probably going to take quite a while before they get that together. But for those of you that tuned into the Beaverton chat with Scott Govitz, and that's available to find on the Beaverton chat website as well as the Four Lakes Task Force website. There's a link there. You'll be able to click on there, and a lot of this was addressed at that time also. But the bottom line is we know that this is going to be costly to repair the Secord Dam. For those of you that may be misunderstanding the condemnation, there's no bulldozers coming to bull down the berms or anything like that. In fact, if you go on the Four Lakes Task Force website under documents, under the GEI information they have posted there, you can actually see the design, the plans. And what they're going to do is they're going to be remediating the berms from working on the inside. So just wanted to make sure we were clear on that. All the work that's going to be done is going to be to fix up, to remediate, and to bring our dams in line with the current safety standards and the engineering techniques that are available today.
Okay, so once condemnation, will we have to acquire his, I'm guessing they're talking about Boyce's, $6 million debt?
No, actually, the $6 million debt and any of the lawsuits that are currently in the process of being formed out there, that will be Boyce's responsibility.
And what is the reason to condemn the dam so fast?
Well, there's actually a ticking time that's going on right now. So once you have an event like that on the dams, basically you have, according to the state of Michigan, 12 months to be able to get your plan together, get your engineering together, how you're going to fix the dams, and present that to the state. So we really can't be working on getting that done until we take ownership of the dams. Every day that goes by increases the sense of urgency. So we need to get ownership as quickly as possible so that we can put together our plan, deliver it to the state, get their approval before that 12-month period goes by. If we go past that 12-month period, then you have to basically start from scratch requesting to have a dam on Secord Lake.
Thank you. Okay.
Let me just comment on that a little bit. The reason too we want to speed this up is so we can get ownership. It's the only way we can start applying for grants. So it's important. There's a lot of interest in the governments right now, a lot of interest everywhere because of the disaster, which is still occurring downriver, by the way. People are still trying to figure out if they're going to fix their home or not. So believe me, our legislators are aware. So if we can get them in our possession, we can therefore apply for grants. We can't apply for grants if we don't own them. They won't give us a grant if we won't own it. So that is another reason we need to move this along quickly.
Okay, we're moving on to FERC questions. These many of the questions that came in at the last meeting were about the FERC report. Many of those were answered by Dave Kepler during the meeting and are provided in the transcript, but there is one additional. Why, and I don't know if this is necessarily a FERC question, but why are the gates still open on Secord?
Well, I can answer that because it's not too complicated. The federal government ordered them open. They ordered the lake to be drained, and we had nothing to say about it, and Boyce has nothing. They own the dam, but they have nothing to say about it. It's been ordered by the government, the federal government. They even went over the top of the DNR and the Eagle, which is the DEQ. They ordered it down. They didn't care about the DNR or anything. It was a federal order. That's why they're open.
Okay, moving on. Finance and assessment questions. And again, many of these questions that were asked or that were submitted were answered by Dave Kepler, but there are a few more. Okay, so the SAD would be responsible for 2/3 of a $500 million project.
I'll let Joel.
Sure.
Joel has a better idea.
Well, basically, the model that we're working with now is totally different than the model before the flood. And just to make everybody comfortable, Secord will not be paying for fixing, repairing Wixom or Sanford. Each lake is going to be set up with it's one special assessment district, but from an accounting perspective, and this will be available on the Four Lakes Task Force website, each lake is going to be set up with revenue in with dollars spent, engineering, repairs, things like that. There will be some administrative costs that go across all 4 lakes. There may be some other types of costs, but the main cost is fixing each lake individually within the special assessment district and the various grants and donations that we can get from corporate donations, individual donations to help get this all together and get our water back as quickly as we can.
This gentleman is asking that he has heard that there are 8,800 homes under the SAD. Is that correct?
You know, I don't know the number exactly, but that is right in that ballpark of over 8,000 that I'm aware of. Now, those are properties, including the back lots that have deeded access.
Okay. And how are we now accountable for this? And I'm assuming they're talking about, you know, the monies that are going to be needed for repair.
Well, we're going to be accountable from the fact that if not us, who? So we all as communities have to work together to get this system back functioning with our lakes. And it is going to cost some money, no question about that. The important thing to understand about a special assessment district when we're looking at Secord or any of the individual lakes is the 4 Lakes Task Force will be making recommendations as to what the yearly assessment will be. But the final decision on that is up to your Board of Commissioners for both the Midland County and the Gladwin County. So they'll bring us a number. If it's a number that the commissioners feel is affordable, then they'll be able to vote and approve that. But people along the way will also have public meetings and get some input in on it, as well as individual meetings if they have certain issues that they want to speak to the 4 Lakes Task Force directly on about their property.
I can add to that, Joel, just a little bit. As you know, we were applying for a 20-year bond. That's how it was originally set up. And now there's some legislation involved to change things because there's some mandates on how far you can push a bond out. But as we speak, I think we have a team working on that with legislation right now to extend that to maybe a 30, if not a 40-year bond to make it affordable for our lake communities, because it's going to be expensive. But I think if we can push it out, our feeling is if we can push it out 30, 40 years, we can afford it. That's our feeling. We're still looking at the affordability for each. We don't want to push people out of their homes. So we still want to keep that figure down as far as possible. And we don't know that figure right now, but there's been stuff put out there that we're going to cost $6,000 a year or whatever. No, it's not. We realize that, and I think the Board of Commissioners, they're going to try to keep that figure. And if we can work the figures right, it'll be still might go up a little more, 350 maybe. But we're not going to try to push it past there because we don't want to force people to have hardships.
Well, and the other key point to remember is the $24 million that we have that we're looking at, that was based on GEI, but that also looked at the information that Spicer had done before we made the purchase offer. Spicer was allowed on all the dams, and at that time they came up with what they thought needed to be fixed based on looking and inspecting those dams. That all changed again with the flood. There's other things that are involved. The 24 million is not a hard number at this point. It could be plus or minus 30 to 50%. So it may come in much less than that. We won't know until we see finally what the FERC has decided that needs to be done for all the dams. And then we'll have the final number and put out the bids, and that'll give us a better idea on exactly what it's going to cost us.
Okay, some of these questions that are coming up are redundant, but I'm going to read them anyway, and you can just say you've already discussed it. The SAD pays 2/3 of the $500 million. Is it $37,000 per home?
No, again, we're breaking this up by lake. We have to keep that in mind. And the people on Wixom and Sanford are going to have a big number to deal with. And the 4 Lakes Task Force understands that. So they'll be working very hard to get grants from the government, as well as a variety of other sources, corporate, private, et cetera, to bring that down. They're hoping to bring that down by 2/3. So we'd be looking at about hopefully 1/3 of that that would be attached to the special assessment district.
Okay, again, maybe redundant. What he said, and this person's talking about Dave Kepler, was that 300 million was more realistic, which federal and state possibly paying with federal and state possibly paying 50%. Secord portion would be approximately 24 million, so a half of 12 million to be divided by 2,000 properties. So the best case may be $6,000 per owner.
Well, again, we're looking at a lot of numbers can be thrown around. Anybody can sit down at the kitchen table with a calculator and come up with a number. But if we looked at 24 million to do the repairs, that's Secord. That has nothing to do with the $100 million downriver from that standpoint. So again, the methodology is going to be put into place, the bond, and they're going to work very hard to make sure that this is going to be affordable. Yeah, I'm not saying, it's not going to be $6,000 a year. We can promise you that. So it's going to be an affordable range.
And Phil, I think you answered this one, but please tell us how much Secord will pay annually and for how long.
Joel, can I answer that right now? We don't have that figure, and we're just not there. We have a whole new playbook. We gave you that figure 10 weeks ago. Everything changed, and so we have a new playbook. It's being written. We have to get these inspections done. We have to get the engineering plans in place till, like Joel said, till we know exactly that figure, and then we're going to push it out as long as we can to make it affordable. And myself, my view is I don't care if it's a 10-year bond or a 30-year bond. I'm sorry, but the dam's going to have to be, we can't just fix the dam today and forget about it like it has been. The dam is going to be a continual process of like you would own a home. It has to be taken care of. And so the theory with us owning it is, and the counties, I should say the county's owning it, not us. But if we do, the counties get invested in this, and the Four Lakes Task Force fully believes we will maintain these dams moving forward. And so we may be paying this assessment. This may be something we just have to do for a long time, but we're going to keep it reasonable.
Okay, the SLPA keeps stating the business SAD has been formed under the Four Lakes Task Force, which leaves the assessment literally open-ended and can change at will of the Four Lakes Task Force versus a government SAD, which protects the SAD residents. Please explain if the business SAD is open-ended, and does the government SAD have more protection for SAD members?
I'll let Joel handle that. He's government guy.
Okay,
Hold on,
so
wait, hold
yes,
on.
ma'am.
So the Four Lakes Task Force is a 501c3 nonprofit that was formed by the Lake Associations in 2018 to support the counties in obtaining the court order part 307 and acquiring the lake and dam properties. So we are a nonprofit. We are a delegated authority for the counties. So basically, we're not a private organization. I hope that answers that.
And is there confusion there with flow maybe that?
Yes.
The flow is off the table. As you all know, we're not pursuing hydroelectric at this time, and the reason for that is that it's been explained to me at the meetings. It creates another layer of complexity, and our desire, I think everybody on this lake and all the lakes basically want our lake back. We don't want to have to extend it to deal with a hydroelectric problem, because it's a whole new set of permits, takes longer. So our theory is the flow unit was to operate the hydroelectric dam part of it. They're no longer doing that, so that's off the table. We're going to just pursue getting our water level up as fast as possible. And so that for-profit deal, that was because hydroelectric is for profit, and we had to have a corporation deal with that. Now there's a lot of confusion about that, but anyway, flow is off the table. Joel?
Yeah, just to clear up some confusion that I've seen on Facebook about flow. The Special Assessment District is not allowed to own any businesses at all, any kind of business. So that is why flow was created. And this is really important because there's some confusion out there. Flow was formed as a corporation, and I believe there was stock issued, something like 60,000 shares. But all the shares of Flow were owned by the Four Lakes Task Force. No individual, Dave Kepler, no individual on the board owned any of the shares. the plan on that was after we hired a company to manage the dams, whatever profits would be left over would go to reduce the special assessment district. So just want to be clear on that. Four Lakes Task Force owned all the shares, and at this point in time, as Phil mentioned, it's essentially a paper entity.
Okay, this next question is really like 4 parts, so bear with me here. The first part, provide specific details for each lake and dam regarding costs, assessments, and benefits per lake. 2, address insurance coverage details for each dam. 3, address risks related to condemnation, clarify assumptions regarding impacts of condemnation and risk that we lose the dam and lake. And 4, details on timing for restoring Secord Lake levels. 5, Secord specific impacts. So
I'm not sure I have enough breath to answer all those at one time, but let's take them one by one, and I'm going to ask you to restate them one by one.
1, provide specific details for each lake and dam regarding costs, assessments, and benefits per lake.
Well, all of those estimates are available on the Four Lakes Task Force website. I got to tell you, I did a deep dive over the website over the last week or so, and there's a tremendous amount of information on there. So I strongly encourage people to go ahead and dig into the Four Lakes Task Force, and that should help answer a lot of the questions. The coming up with the cost and everything, there is a GEI assumption summary that has it broken down by lake. It has the $24 million for Secord broken down by line item on what those costs potentially could be. Again, those are all subject to change when we get all of the information in from FERC. The benefits to the lake, I think, are quite a bit. We want to have our water and our lake filled up as quickly as possible, but we want it done safely. We don't want to ever have another situation like occurred on May 19th. We don't ever want to see a flood like that happen again. And if we restore these dams correctly, we can have that as a great benefit for us to all relax. And for the people living below the dam and below Smallwood Dam and the other dams, people can feel comfortable that they're built to today's standards and very safe.
2, address insurance coverage details for each dam.
Well, one of the benefits of being a county dam is we have an organization that insures counties. So each dam automatically gets $15 million coverage once they're owned by the county. Now, in addition to that, the Four Lakes Task Force, and I don't know the number, but they've agreed that they're going to also have insurance on top of that for each dam. So I think that's very, very important. So if it's a private ownership, then of course, as we see with Boyce, all those types of insurances have to be on that private entity.
3, address risks related to condemnation, clarify assumptions regarding impacts of condemnation and risk that we lose the dam and lake.
Well, the risk on the condemnation is just simply getting through the process. So we filed already for condemnation, and that will go through the court system, and hopefully within a relatively reasonable period of time, the counties will be able to take ownership via the Four Lakes Task Force, and we'll be able to move forward with getting our engineers on and getting the appropriate designs and everything. Again, still needing more input from FERC or the state. And then being able to move forward.
Details on timing for restoring Secord Lake levels.
And that's a great question. When you go onto the Four Lakes Task Force website and you see and David showed this information also, and I'm going to focus in on Secord, and you're seeing a 4-year time frame, a 4-year period of reconstruction. And that is our best estimate on what things are going to take. But it doesn't mean that we have to wait until the very last moment of the 4 years to have the lake refilled. So at some point during that process, we'll be working with cofferdams on Secord. So there's ways to have the dam fixed to such an extent that we'll get the permits from the state, from FERC, and everybody agrees that it's safe at that point to raise the water and we can continue working on the dams. Then we'll all want to do that. All of us want to have our lakes restored as quickly as possible, but safety has to be the other main governing point.
I can add to that a little bit. Before this happened, believe it or not, we had put everything together and along with an engineering plan to fix the dams. And we had the FERC and we had the state of Michigan going along with our plan, and it wasn't going to be done immediately. We weren't going to fix them immediately, but for the federal government liked the Four Lakes Task Force. And if we promised we were going to have, we had a time period and we had an engineering plan. The government felt they could trust us to do this. They did not trust Boise Hydro to do it, and because they haven't done it. They missed all their marks. So we told, they were happy we were taking over. Again, everything's changed since the flood, and it's got more complicated. But I think the government, if they trust anybody, I think they're going to trust the county's ownership in the Four Lakes Task Force efforts.
I apologize, but I got to go back to a FERC question. I do understand that water levels are controlled by FERC. Can we petition for winter water levels on Smallwood and Secord? And this will help with erosion, animals, safety, etc.
I'll take that. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I actually reviewed that question earlier, and it's a good question. And actually, I would take that to the being I'm a representative, it's my job to take those ideas to the Four Lakes Task Force. But I can tell you a couple little glitches with that idea. Number one is, if anybody's looking out their window right now, they're seeing trees above the water. And so if we raise the water, say a little bit to the winter level, it could become a real hazard if you're out in your boat chugging along, or you have pulling a skier or a tube and somebody falls off and actually gets killed by hitting one of these trees sticking up. So there is a hazard with having a lower water level. And the other hazard would be the erosion. I know we have could have erosion now, but if you have boats on this river putting up a wake and you don't have the water full capacity, it's going to hit your sand berms right now, and they're going to fall apart. So, although it's a kind of interesting idea, but there is some negatives. But I'll propose it. I don't know, if it could be requested, or maybe we can think through it a little better. I don't know, but we appreciate the question, and I'll actually bring that up.
Okay, these are some questions regarding Mueller. Has anyone asked Boyce, what is the plan? It's not worded properly here, but has anyone asked Boyce, what is the plan after the back out of the sale?
Are you following that, Joe? What's the plan for, what, can you read that again?
Yeah, it says, has anyone, I'm going to read it as it's written. Has anyone asked Boyce what his plan is after the back out of the sale? What his plan is after the back out of the sale, maybe? I don't know his plan. He's going to have difficulty because I read through a 38-page lawsuit filed by the state of Michigan. He's going to have trouble getting a permit from the state of Michigan, period. And in that lawsuit, I read it over twice. The federal government's not very happy with him. So I don't know, and he can't put water in the lake without a permit from one of those two. So his plan, even though he puts a little Band-Aid on the dam, I just don't think it's feasible, him owning the dams to bring the water out. But okay, I'll chain it out. So the government, so we own the dam, and FERC does say, well, if you put a $30,000 cement repair in, you can raise your water. There's no reason the Four Lakes Task Force wouldn't consider that. I mean, if they feel the dam is safe, we would do it. But our main thing, as Joel said, is we want this dam to be safe. Whoever owns the dams have to be responsible to the lake communities to have a safe dam. And so we're going to make sure that dam is safe before water's brought up. But if the federal government comes to us and says you can bring it up, do these repairs in some kind of sequence, the meetings I've been to, there's no objection to that with the Four Lakes Task Force. Okay, does Boyce have insurance for the dams that failed?
I'll let Joel take that one. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's a difficult question for us to answer because we don't know the inner workings of Boyce. One would assume that there would be insurance from that standpoint, but that's all it would be an assumption. The private owners in today's environment, If you're a private owner of a dam, you're going to need to have insurance. No question about that. So, but we don't have that answer.
Who would own the dam if Boyce goes bankrupt?
Well, again, that would enter into negotiations on behalf of the Four Lakes Task Force with the bankruptcy courts. Our goal is to take ownership for the counties, so we would go in that direction if that occurs.
Okay. We're going to move into Secord Lake Association questions.
Okay.
Where are the Secord Lake Association bylaws?
They're posted on our website, Secord Lake Association .org. Thank you. SecordLakeAssociation.org. They are posted.
Okay. Also, something to consider from my experience on association boards is we need to investigate insurance for board members.
That's a good question, and you're right. We are looking into that. We're looking into that. So you are right. We need to be protected in this day and age. We all need to be protected from lawsuits, that's for sure.
Why was Dave Kepler running the Lake Association meeting?
He wasn't. I was running it. I asked him as a guest to come and help present. Dave Kepler is the most knowledgeable person about the inner workings of what's going on. I sit on the board, but he spends roughly 10 to 12 hours a day working on this. I meet, I was supposed to meet once a month, but we're meeting a few times a week. But he really understands this whole process better, and so I asked him as a guest. I ran the meeting.
Please do a better job of communicating this information, not just during your video conferences, but also reaching out to all of the property owners on Secord. I found out about all these committees, SLA, SAD, FLTF, by word of mouth. You must get input from more than 200 to 300 video attendees to get a fair perspective and any support needed going forward. Otherwise, you may have many owners being surprised by increase in taxes, etc.
You're right. And prior to May 19th, we had a lot of public meetings, and I'm sorry if you missed those, but the Four Lakes Task Force and our association had meetings April through October last year, public meetings. We addressed every meeting, we addressed what was going on with the Four Lakes Task Force. Four Lakes Task Force had meetings in Meridian High School, and we had a few here in Secord Lake in different places, public meetings. And our intention this year was to have the same thing, but as we all know, this virus came aboard in March and has basically shut down public meetings, and it's been a problem. Communication, I don't think any of us are prepared for this. We're doing the best we can, and I've been reaching out to small groups and neighborhoods, and so is Joel. We're trying to explain things in small groups, which that's the only way we can do it. We just can't have public meetings right now. You got to bear with us. If you have a friend or a neighbor that doesn't have capabilities, maybe you can share some information with your computer or whatever. But unfortunately, this right now in these times, we have to do things, and I don't like it. Believe me, I'm at the age where this doesn't sit well with me, but this is what's demanded of us.
And we will have a newsletter coming out.
Oh yeah, we do plan to send a newsletter out. We're working on it. Initially, our association was looking at newsletters, but it's an expensive process, and we've been thinking to try to do it on through our media, but we are planning on releasing a newsletter. We're getting more donations, getting more members. We have groups willing to work with us, helping us out. So you should see a newsletter shortly.
Now keep in mind this was back on July 18th when this question came in. Does Secord Lake Association have a lawyer? And that lawyer should be pushing authorities to get that report when they were talking about the FERC report.
Actually, we don't have a hired lawyer. We have two lawyers that sit on our board of directors, but I'm not sure what you mean by push to get that. I think any individual out there that has any connection with a legislator or anybody in Washington, anybody in Lansing, that's what we need. We need individual people, if you have a connection, to make the connection and say, please help us out. Because the legislators are the ones, that's who FERC works for. And in the state of Michigan, the Dam Safety Committee, they work for the legislators. And so it has to come from private individuals. We do have an attorney at the Four Lakes Task Force that's paid. Our association is not a paid attorney. And but we will be, when the time comes, if we get ownership, we will be reaching out to try to get this moved forward faster.
Okay. Do we ever get a voter say in anything, or will we continue to have do as I say?
Well, it's not, I'm not sure. You can vote if you're actually this association isn't a requirement, but if you are an association member, you certainly could have it. You can have input, I guess. It doesn't have to be even through the association. I take any question to the Four Lakes Task Force that I can, but we're not the boss. I'm a volunteer that's trying to get our water back on our lake. I'm representing Secord Lake as a volunteer. I'm not a boss. I'm not bossing anybody. As we know, there's another movement. I'm not saying there can't be. I think the Four Lakes Task Force, and so does the county, so does the townships for the most part, think this is the way forward. And I've sat on this board for 2 years, and I understand the complexities, the difficulties, and actually I'm amazed by how complex this whole thing is. So I don't like being called a boss. I'm not the boss of anybody. I'm just trying to represent our lake. I want water back just like everybody else. I just retired. Well, I've been on the lake for a long time, but I retired here permanently 3 years ago. Sure, I want the water back. So I'm just volunteering to try to get that accomplished.
Okay, we're going to move into repair and refill timelines. Is there a way to do repairs with at least winter water levels?
I'll let Joel take over. I've talked enough. I'll let Joel talk.
Well, and again, we've visited the timelines in the past, and I'm just going to refer back that the 4-year timeline is to get through all of the projects and the reconstruction remediation that we're looking to do. There hopefully will be times during that 4-year period where hopefully we reach the safety level that either the state or FERC will allow us to refill our lake. And as long as that's they're supporting that and the engineers are supporting that it's safe, hopefully that will occur much sooner than the 4-year time period.
Okay, in the April Four Lakes Task Force meeting, it was noted that Secord only needed an additional spillway. That can be done while the water is up. Now, what now are we looking at? I cannot find a report on the Four Lakes Task Force website. When our property values are back and we actually have waterfront rights again, people may feel better about paying $15,000. This will cost every homeowner, and we know the Four Lakes Task Force is not pooling all the money for studies and donations. Okay, and some of that was.
Yeah, I'm really not quite sure how to answer that. Again, we have to wait until we know exactly what has to be fixed. We'll have that information from FERC at this point. They're the ones doing the forensic investigation. But everything changed on the 19th. Our berms have been looked at a lot closer. We now know that there have been some sloughing on the right berm that wasn't there before the storm occurred. So there's been a lot of changes that means we're going to have to bring these dams up to a little more 21st century engineering and construction. When I toured the Secord Dam with the Army Corps of Engineers, they weren't there to do a line item study or anything, but I did ask them, what are your thoughts? What are your observations? And they said, you know, the biggest thing that we can see is these berms are made about the same time, the same engineering and the same materials as the berm on the Tittabawassee side of Wixom that failed. So it would make sense to bring these up to today's construction site.
Okay, and when are we going to have a plan in place to move forward and get the dam repaired?
Well, the plans are coming together. The challenge is we need to have the county take ownership of the dams before we can get our engineers on site, boots on the ground, to make sure that that we know exactly what needs to be remediated.
Okay. Do we need the Cadillac of dams, or can we prioritize and do repairs as needed in some logical order?
I can take that. Yeah, I don't think we can look at Cadillac, Chevy, or Dodge, or Ford, but I think we need to look at safety. So we're not talking Cadillac dam, we're talking a 21st century dam. If we bond this out for a longer period of time, which we're talking about 30, 40 years, like I mentioned, you have to have a dam that's current and designed for the next 75 years plus. So it's not talking about Cadillac dam, we're talking about a current dam with modern construction. If you build a house 100 years ago, obviously it has, if you remodel, it has to be all updated. And that's kind of what we're looking at with the dam. It's just that simple. We have to bring it up to codes, current codes. I mean, if we bond long-term, they're going to look, the bonding company is going to look at how the dam is made. If it's designed for the next 75 years, that'll be good. They won't bond us on a dam that isn't going to be repaired.
Is Secord and Smallwood being held hostage so lakes downstream from us can get their needed repairs so our drawdown doesn't cause issues with rebuilding the two dams that were lost?
No. It's been clear at every meeting I've attended that both Sanford and Wixom Dam has had they have to be rebuilt. It's major devastation. Our dam survived, as we know, and so did Smallwood, but it still needs repair. So it's been talked all along that our water in these two lakes will be the first ones up. The dams will be the first one to be addressed because there's not as major. I mean, you talk Sanford Dam was completely totaled out. So it's a major construction. We're going to be probably the first or second lake up. We got Smallwood and us. We're kind of together on this. And so I think there's no question on the Four Lakes Task Force that that's going to occur. At least in my mind, what meetings I've attended, it's never been a me first from any of the other lakes. And I hate to say we want to be me first too, but we're going to be first because our dam is, first of all, the top of the chain, which makes, I'm not an engineer, but it just makes sense. They want our dam to be safe because if it isn't and we bring water up, it's just going to completely devastate everybody.
Okay, if Secord Lake owners can raise the money to fix the one critical issue and assist with the spillway, can we get the lake back sooner? And assuming that the information Mueller shared with the SLPA is accurate.
Well, I think Joel answered that already. We don't feel that the information he shared is accurate. But being that said, we're in favor of getting the water up. I think it's going to be the government telling us what we have to do it. You know, I'm not sure, what was the question again?
If Secord Lake owners can raise the money to fix the one critical issue and assist with the spillway, can we get the lake back sooner?
Yeah, there's just more than one critical issue, and I don't know if anybody saw the FERC response for Secord was released, and there wasn't just one issue. There was several issues. Now there is critical, maybe non-critical, and down the road, but there's more than one issue, and $30,000. So I don't know where that's coming from Lee Mueller, but I don't know if anybody's put a seawall in lately, but $30,000 don't buy you a lot. So we're not really confident that's a correct number. The engineering, we actually, Joel talked to one of our lake members, not the Four Lakes Task Force, not association, but one of our one of the people we've talked to as a civil engineer, son's a civil engineer, and I'll let Joel take over here, but he talked to him about the cost just in the engineering alone. So I'll let Joel explain that.
Yeah, basically, this guy's son works in Canada on hydrodams. He's an engineer for hydrodams, and as he looked through the list of things that Boyce needs to accomplish by August 20th, basically he told his dad, he said, you know, looking at all of this, this is probably going to cost $100,000 just to get this done by August 20th. So And again, that was nothing solicited, that was shared. That's a key issue. And we have ownership of the dams at that time. And we'll get the water up and we'll go ahead and continue to make our repairs over the next 4 years.
And I don't know if Joel has mentioned, but I think it's true that, is it the Kepler Foundation or Dave Kepler himself said, if we can raise $30,000 here, he'll match it.
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay, so, but that's through the Four Lakes Task Force. It's not, that's not, we're not going to give boys $30,000. That would be the Four Lakes Task Force.
Okay, you keep saying the $30,000 number is not realistic. Is it fair to say the spillway work could be completed after water is put back in?
I think we've answered that. Joel said, yeah, it's a possibility. Again, I think we're going to go for that. Of course we're going to go for that. They okayed it before, but times have changed. We've devastated Sanford, example. They no longer have a downtown. So the government's looking at things just a little differently now, and it's going to be completely up to the federal government. We are still under FERC. That will probably change down the road, but the state of Michigan has been pointed out, their regulations are similar to FERC's. The spillway may be a little less requirement there, but technically the state of Michigan has the same requirements as the federal government on the basic issues. So yeah, we're hoping the spillway can be addressed at a later time, but that will be up to the federal government.
What happens to the ecosystem to our lake when winter hits, when the water is so low, and for the next 4 to 5 years? And what about the effect on seawalls with no back pressure for the next years?
Yeah, that's scary. I wish that I think everybody's looking at that. We don't have the erosion issues at some downriver, but you're right. If this has to be prolonged, there is some issues with erosion, seawalls. Some people are working on that as we speak. I was asked at the last meeting if we had any major issues here. Now, this is a good time to tell our lake community, please, if you have a major erosion issue, there is some help for that. You have to get on board, but come let one of your board members of the association know. We'll be glad to take that or hook you up with the right people. But yeah, I'm worried. I'm worried about my seawall. I don't know. I guess you look at it and I'm going to bring in some sand and I'm going to try to keep it upright. I think we have to be all due diligence on your property and put your irrigation tubes out and try to prevent erosion as best we can.
Okay, I'm just going to let you know it's 8 o'clock and
Yes.
There's many questions left. So if we've already answered the question, let's just move on to another question.
I think my feeling of the meeting was I will go hour and a half, but I know what happens after an hour and a half. People are going to start falling asleep and they lose interest. So we can push it out a little longer, but I know everybody, we don't want to push it too long where people are, so go ahead. We'll keep plugging away here.
Economic and tax concerns are the next group. Can you please address the economic concerns for Gladwin County?
Yeah, I'll be Joel.
This is a real crucial area for our county. Everyone in our county, including the businesses, including every township, is going to be affected by this horrific situation that we're living through right now. All the townships up and down the river are going to be affected as the December 31st of 2020, when they reset the assessments, which will be for the following year. The county as a whole is also going to have a major challenge because we are not a wealthy county from that standpoint, and we're gonna lose revenue. So there's going to be a lot of services in that are going to have to be rethought of, re-engineered on how we can live under that less money coming in. Now, also, when everybody's property taxes go down for the following year, let's say we get water back the year after. Well, they can't, that December 31st of the year we get the water back, they can't go back to today's property tax level. Because let's say they're dropped 10% or 20% or 30, whatever the number is, because of the Headley Amendment, which I firmly support, we can only go up as far as 5% per year, or the rate of inflation ties into that. So we won't get back up to today's property values as far as assessments for quite a while. So that's a key issue. The overall economic issue is huge also. Certainly the businesses up and down the lake are going to be dramatically affected. If you're a hoist company, you're not putting in hoists and taking out hoists. If you're a marina, there may be less pontoons and boats that are bought or need service or winterization. So that's going to hit. But in our county, we go from about 28,000 population up to 66,000 in the summer. That's huge. And a lot of them are coming in at Wixom and Smallwood and Secord. They're coming in, they're having fun, they're going to town, they're going to restaurants, they're going to the hardware store. Heck, they're going up to West Branch, or they may going to Standish or down to Midland to shop. So a lot of those people are not going to choose to be up here during that time. A lot of them will. I've heard some very interesting comments on how peaceful the lake is right now, and it is. A little too peaceful for me personally, and I think for a lot of us, but some people will enjoy that aspect of it. But the economic impact is going to be very, very difficult for us to get through.
Okay, can we hold our tax payments for now and then we write Gladwin and tell them we need further independent inspection and get the water up before Gladwin has to reduce taxes?
Well, I think it's as good citizens, it's important for us to pay our property taxes because we depend on the services that are done by our townships and by our county. So I would encourage everyone to be good citizens and to pay your taxes. Again, the assessments will change on December 31st of 2020 for the following year. And in March of 2021, if the taxes haven't been reduced to what your belief is it should be, you'll have the opportunity to go to the Board of Review and to challenge that at that time.
Okay, we're moving on to questions that came in via email after our meeting. Here's the first question. How is Lee planning to repair the hole this year when admittedly he does not have the money to initiate the project?
Well, I guess that's something we really don't have the answer on. I know that that the other group is trying to raise the money to have that taken care of, and that's really all we know about it at this point in time.
Okay, also, if Mueller will accept $30,000 from the preservation group and fix the hole, then refill the water, why don't they do it? That's only $500 times 60 members. Then collect from all property owners after the fact when we have water.
Well, again, the big challenge is the governing agency right now is FERC, and they're going to determine when the water can be raised, period.
In the flyer, it's mentioned SP will lease or look into buying the dam for 5 to 7 years. I'm not sure who SP is. What if Lee loses the dam to lawsuits, bankruptcy, or foreclosure from the lender who gave him $6 million?
Well, again, our focus on the Four Lakes Task Force is we're working to gain ownership of the dams for the county through currently the condemnation process. If it ends up into bankruptcy, then we'll be working with the bankruptcy courts on that.
How will the dam be insured if leased by SP? I'm guessing that's the Secord Preservation Association. What type of insurance is, that type of insurance is very expensive, much less after the flood event with a minimal repair completed.
Well, I think keep in mind that the Four Lakes Task Force is the delegated authority for the county. So there'll be county dams, and I mentioned earlier that automatically they get $15 million to begin with. If the other organization moves forward, and they're certainly welcome to do that on a private basis, then we'll be right back in the situation where the dams will be privately loaned, and that'll be all up to them.
If the dam gets the minimal fix, who would authorize the raising of the water? The state or FERC?
Currently, that would be FERC.
Why does FERC have control now if electricity is not being produced?
Primarily because they're doing the forensic investigation to find out exactly what happened with that berm. So they're going to have control of that. We still have the powerhouses up there. There still are the licenses for those powerhouses on Smallwood and Secord. So Boyce still has those licenses. So FERC is still going to be the governing body at this point.
Is there less liability for property owners if Gladwin and Midland County own the dams, or if Secord property owners actually own it, or the SP? I'm guessing that's the preservation.
That's a real legal question. I'm not sure I'm a lawyer to be able to answer that. But as I said earlier, when you're a public infrastructure and the dams in Gladwin County automatically get the $15 million through our insuring company, That's the same with the other, like the Chapel Dam. We have that on Chapel Dam. So that's a very complicated question. I'm not sure I can give the full answer on that.
Lee mentioned he has a $6 million loan that after the fact wasn't the best terms. Is he repaying that loan, or is there a chance of foreclosure?
Yeah, to answer that again, we're not involved in the challenges that one has when one has a $6 million loan, or the type of lawsuits that are there. That will be totally up to Boyce.
I can add to that a little bit. Prior to the flood, when we were purchasing the dam, that loan was going to be taken care of with the money we were giving him to purchase the dam. So, in other words, to take possession of those dams from Lee Mueller, my understanding was part of that negotiation was we were paying off that loan. That was part of the purchase price. We weren't paying it off extra. It was part of the, as everybody knows, it was a $9.4 million purchase price, but that debt had to be taken care of through that purchase price. That's my understanding.
Okay, let's see, hold on.
But it's all changed now. I mean, obviously now, since we took the purchase agreement off the table, we are not going to cover that loan, period. That's the way I understand it.
Okay, this is the last question from this individual. Lee mentioned he has turned in the repair report for Secord and Smallwood to FERC. Why doesn't he ask to refill the lakes after repairs are completed now instead of waiting for what?
He's got to wait for a federal approval. FERC's got to approve it. It's just, we've mentioned that before, but he cannot put water in this lake. And in that FERC letter that was released, I believe last week or whatever, that he can't raise the water without a permit from the federal government, period.
Okay, here's another question. Has the cost of staying with a hydro dam been looked at on a dam-by-dam basis? Can Secord generate electricity to offset costs until it is ultimately needed to take that major step and make the major modifications to the dam that would eliminate hydro?
Well, I think we answered that. We're not pursuing the hydro right now because of the time element. I think everybody on this lake and every other lake, the primary need is to get our lake back, period. To put in hydro with anything right now, or even talk to them about our hydro unit, it would create another layer of complexity that would take time, and we don't have time. I think we can revisit it down the road. I'm sure it'll be revisited down the road, but right now our goal is to get the water back, get our lake back. That's it.
Okay, here's some Secord Lake Association questions. When the association was formed, why were the property owners not notified by mail and given an opportunity to join? I don't believe we received such notification or notifications since the association was formed. Well,
if you live on this lake and you didn't know about the association, I'm sorry about that, but we did have several meetings. They were announced. We had them at the Secord Township last year. We had packed audience. If you don't know about, and I know some people don't know about the association, I guess what you have to do now is, like Joel said, you need to actually get involved, dig into some things, dig into Four Lakes Task Force, dig into the association bylaws, and get yourself informed. I came up here in 2002. I was a weekender. I'm not going to use the other word. I was a weekender, and I enjoyed it. But you know what? I wasn't connected. I got to admit, I had a business, and I wasn't connected. I come up here, and the last thing I wanted to do, I came up here to get away from everything, and I wanted to relax. And I think there's several of you out there that probably agree to that. They don't want to get involved in the lake. So yeah, there's probably some you didn't know about it. Maybe it's because you chose not to know about it. Maybe you just come up here to relax, period. But if you're heard about that, get involved. You get on the websites. You can get involved. In fact, we're looking for people with expertise in certain areas that have time to help us. We have several groups coming forward now. We've had individuals call us that can help. But so I guess it depends where you're at. I used to come up here to relax. I didn't want nothing to know about anything. I didn't want to know about anything. But so there's that mindset too. So I don't know what else I can say.
If the Secord Lake Association requires membership in order to vote on decisions, what voice do we have as homeowners on tax assessments if we don't join the association?
Well, the association has nothing to do with taxes. That is, I'll let Joel take it from here, but just to be clear, our association don't deal with, we're not a taxing unit. So Joel, you can maybe elaborate on that.
Yeah, basically, the assessors for each of the townships, the county assessors, are the ones that determine generally over a 2-year time frame based on sales on what the assessments are going to be. I know they're looking to go to the Michigan Tax Tribunal to try to shorten that down to a shorter period of 1 year to be more fair to all of the property and homeowners around the lake. But those assessments are set every year on December 31st of that year for the following year. And that's what will happen this time.
Okay, and Phil, I'm going to answer this question for you.
Great.
How many Secord Lake property owners are members of the association? And that information is all of our members are either full-time or seasonal residents on Secord Lake. And as of Sunday, July 26th, we had a total of 132 members. 26 are 2019 members who have not yet renewed for the 2020 year. 64 members are paid up for 2020, and 26 members are paid up through 2023. And then we have 16 members that are paid up through 2024. So therefore, as of Sunday, July 26th, a total of 106 members are eligible to vote in the August election.
And we're hoping to get more. But actually, if you, we kind of followed Whitsom Lake, and believe it or not, they've had an association for years, and their association membership was only around not much more than that actually until Boyce Hydro emptied their lake, and then they had an influx of concerned people, so their membership went up to like 600. And we have a crisis here. We need help. I encourage you as an individual to try to be involved. Is difficult. If you join the association, we can work together. Like I said, we're supposed to be the voice. Four Lakes Task Force can't field every individual question out there. That's what we're for. And I would love more than ever for you to contact me. My stuff's out there. My information's out there. I mean, if there's some way I can get something to or answer a question, I'm more than willing to. But we need your help. We need you. Our lake needs a association that can be their voice, and that's what we're about.
I'm going to read this question, but I think, Joel, you just answered it. What is the legal authority that allows the Secord Lake Association to represent us as property owners and work with the Four Lakes Task Force to determine tax assessment amounts on our property and supports us having to pay a fee to vote on such decisions?
That's a tax question, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, again, going back to what I said before, the taxes are set by the assessors on each of the townships, looking at generally a 2-year time frame in sales, and that's how it is according to Michigan law.
Does the Secord Lake Association have legal authority to represent my property regardless if I join the association or not?
No, we have no legal authority to actually represent anybody. We are a legal association, but we're just a voice. We have no legal authority over anybody.
Is the association legally obligated to inform by mail the Secord Lake property owners of the association's representation of Secord Lake front property owners and decisions made that impact our property? Does this obligation only extend to property owners who join and pay dues to the association? No,
like Joel said, that when the assessment does come along, there will be public hearings, as there was throughout this whole process. If you followed the Four Lakes Task Force for the last 2 years, there's been public hearings. You had a right to go to court to object. You had a right to go to meetings. We listened to several people during our public meetings, and we made several adjustments with their concerns. When this happens again with assessments, you'll have the opportunity. There'll be public hearings, and there'll be opportunity to speak up if you don't agree. Did I answer that? I think, okay.
When were the Secord Lake property owners notified that the Secord Lake Association was joining the Four Lakes Task Force?
Well, first of all, the Secord Lake Association did not join the Four Lakes Task Force. We have 2 representatives from our association that sits on the board. So there's nothing about, we didn't actually join, there's no join there. We support the Four Lakes Task Force as an association. Our board has made that very clear. We feel the way forward is with the Four Lakes Task Force in county ownership. So I don't think we just represent, we have 2 representatives and actually we have terms, and so my term will be running out, and actually if someone felt they could do a better job than I am, they could come to our association board meetings and tell us, and you may want to be on the Four Lakes Task Force, and that's fine.
I'll answer the next question. Where can I find the bylaws and articles that govern the Secord Lake Association? We did answer this earlier. secordlakeassociation.org/bylaws.
Okay.
What does the dues to join the association cover?
Well, you become part of our lake community that has a voice, hopefully. Up till now, we were going to have programming that was of interest to the lake. We were going to talk about weed control. We were going to talk about goose roundup. We were going to talk about DNR patrols. We were going to try, it's a lake community. We were going to try, we're for the improvement of our lake. That was going to be our topics up until we lost our lake. So what it gives you a right to do is, number 1, vote. If you're not happy with the way we're doing things, we have elections. And our board, you can run for the board of directors of our association. It's open. That'll be done by our membership voting. What other right does it give you? That's about all we're about. We're here for, you'll have a right to vote. You have a right to come. Well, actually, we've opened our meetings to anybody that wants to come when we had them. And our Zoom meeting here is open to anyone that wants to sit in. So we're not just limiting our information to association members. We do have emails for our association members. They do get direct emails. That's probably a little better if you are a member. You would get a little more communication directly. And if we do a newsletter, we're going to try to reach to our whole lake community, but eventually we're going to, because of the costs involved, we'll probably send it out to association members. That's all I have. Okay.
Our Four Lakes Task Force votes and recommendations of the association based on majority vote of the Secord Lake Association members.
Can you run that by me again?
Are the Four Lakes Task Force votes and recommendations of the association based on the majority vote of the Secord Lake Association members?
Not really. I guess there's 2 of us that represent the Secord Lake right now through the association. The way I told you originally, the way the Four Lakes is set up is by representation from the Lake Association. That's in each lake. So I don't know how to really answer that. We don't take a vote by all the members of how to answer a question on the Four Lakes Task Force. I guess you're trusting the representatives. If you're not happy with the way we're doing things, you can complain to our board of directors. You can come, if I gave you the names, so if you're not happy with the way I myself would run it, or in the future Chuck, you can speak up, and our board has the right to consider a change, I guess. That's all I don't know.
Can the tax dollars that have been collected for weed control that have not been spent be reallocated to dam repairs?
I can answer that because Joel and I just attended a meeting, and actually that is a good question because the other lakes actually are looking at that also. I mean, they're going to go to their townships, and other lakes have trees, I guess some trees growing and some problems that they're not happy about. And they're going to ask the townships if they could use that money to address some of those issues, because technically trees aren't weeds, but they're a problem, especially if it's popple tree or something that grows a couple foot a year. And these trees happen to be in muck areas. And if we have that on our lake, I'm not aware of it, but if you have that situation, perhaps we could go to our townships as association and say, you know, we have a problem. Could those funds be available? And that, again, it's going to be up to the townships, but I think they would listen to us. And so we're willing to do that if somebody has a problem out there. Now, as far as weed control goes, you got to remember the weeds are kind of helping hold your sand together. I know some of them are out of control, but you got to look at the positive side. They may be helping keep your sand in place.
Okay, this is from a new individual here. If the counties are going to own dams, lake beds, why do we need the 4 Lakes Task Force? Isn't elected officials better to impose a SAD? A public taxing authority is much better to borrow federal and state funds than a nonprofit due to full faith and credit. Gladwin already owns and operates a dam, so they have the knowledge to do so again.
Well, again, the 4 Lakes Task Force is a delegated authority, so the Special Assessment District is all controlled by the commissioners of both Midland and Gladwin counties. So we went over this information a little earlier, so this is a public entity that will be owned by the counties.
Do you understand that a resolution giving authority to the 4 Lakes Task Force is not the same as establishing a joint building authority between the two counties that can issue tax exempt bonds based on the SAD and own property in both counties?
Okay, that seems to be above my pay grade since I'm not a lawyer from that standpoint. I'll just go back to state again. As a delegated authority, we have to work with the county commissioners. No bonds will be signed or approved without the approval of your county commissioners.
Okay, could the assessment be done in the summer and winter as a split to make it easier on some folks that are on a limited income?
I can feel that. And that's a good question. I think that, I don't know if that can be done, but I think we could present that. I'm not sure how taxes are set up. Maybe I'm speaking over, Joel may have to help me with this, but I think it's a valid question and I kind of like it actually, and I would be willing to present that. Again, I don't think that's a 4 Lakes Task Force issue or association. It kind of goes to your township and your county. So I don't know if you had anything to add with that, Joel?
Not really.
Okay, I think it's a good request. And again, I don't know, so we could ask that question.
Okay, this is the very last question that came in via email, and then if we have a little bit of time, we might take a couple questions from tonight's folks. Of the 24 million estimate to bring Secord Dam into compliance to restore it to a functional recreational reservoir, could you please present what is the breakdown by dollars that make up the estimate? It repairs, engineering, and administration, etc.
Joel already answered that. I'll let him deal with it. We already kind of addressed that, but
yeah, and again, I'm going to talk a little bit about the resources that are on the 4 Lakes Task Force website. The first one is there's a 2-page, it's called the 4 Lakes Task Force Fact Sheet, Positions and Issues. That's available to go on there, to look at, to read, to print off as I did. And this addresses a lot of questions that were asked tonight. Voice ownership of the dams, lake levels for the 4 Lake, Gladwin, Midland County, etc. That's very, very important. You'll also find the breakdown. Again, these are estimated costs, but this is a line item breakdown on the Secord Dam on how they're going to be fixing things. These prices, of course, subject to a plus or minus 30 or 50%, but that's available and you can print that off from our website. Additionally, for people that are interested, here's the GEI conceptual of putting the spillway in. And this is also the concept on how they're going to fortify our berms, renovate our berms basically from the inside. They won't be knocked down. They'll be worked on the inside. And all this information is available on the 4 Lakes Task Force website under documents under GEI.
Okay, so now we're going to move into some questions that came in tonight, both via the everyone view and then some that came in privately. All right, here we go. There is a split between two different associations on our lake, Secord Lake Association and the Secord Lake Preservation Association, which is creating a rift. Has there been any attempt to have a meeting between both associations? And if so, what was the result of that meeting?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we do have this problem. We did try to have a meeting. Didn't work real well. But a few of the people that were representing the preservation group came in, and we did talk for about an hour and a half. Ms. Ringo did leave, and I'm sorry about that because I am trying to find some common ground. I think it's sad. I moved here and this was a very friendly lake, and I'm afraid that what's happening now, I'm finding bickering and disruption and people getting hard feelings, and that's not the lake I knew when I moved here, and I feel bad about it. I would like to find common ground, but the problem we have with that is one group wants to go with Boyce Hydro, and our group doesn't want to go with Boyce Hydro. And as far as I know, the counties don't want to go with Boyce Hydro. So it's quite a separation of how we accomplish. We all want the water back. That's pretty basic, you know. We all want that back. I think whether it's Boyce, I'm not so sure. Like I said before, I don't know if his credibility is good enough with the governments to get that permit. I think the Four Lakes Task Force credibility may be better. I think our association feels the Four Lakes Task Force is the best way forward. I think the counties feel that. I wish we could get together. I'm tired of us bickering about this. We're just so, you know, it's just two extreme differences. One wants Boyce Hydro in the picture and one doesn't. And Joe, go ahead.
Well, common ground is exactly what Phil talked about. We all want our water restored. I've got an 18-month-old grandson that's learning how to swim, and in front of my house are just a bunch of weeds and muck. So it's all pulling on our hearts. We all miss our lake, the relaxation that we have when you look over a beautiful lake, the ability to boat, the ability to swim. So we all have that common ground. First and foremost, there's only one delegated authority for the counties of both Midland and Gladwin County to be able to move forward to take ownership of these properties on behalf of the counties and to the counties. So, and that is the Four Lakes Task Force. I think that's very important to understand. But beyond that, Scott Govitz, so please take the time to look at the Beaverton Fireside chat. Scott Govitz, unsolicited, made a great point. He'd worked a lot of years as a grant writer, and now, of course, he works for Mid-Michigan Community College, and he's just a wealth of experience. And he made the point that looking at these Four Lakes together, there's a tremendous amount of strength and power in unity. You're talking over 8,000 properties and people. That takes a lot of notice for the politicians. If you start breaking that up and you become a small group as opposed to having all of us together, that's going to make a difference. It makes a difference when you're writing a grant. When you're taking a grant for 8,000 as opposed to 2,000, the people that award the grants seem to favor doing the larger grants. Together, we are stronger. I believe we can find common ground. No, the Four Lakes Task Force and the Secord Lake Association does not agree that putting a Band-Aid on the problem and having more problems come in the future is the way to go. So we are going to have to spend a little bit more money. Again, it might not be the full 24 million, that's plus or minus 30 or 50%, but it is going to cost us more money to do it right for ourselves and for our children and for our grandchildren.
Okay, is the Four Lakes Task Force being sued, and if so, by whom?
Well, there are lawsuits that a lot of people are named in. Generally, when groups of lawyers get together, any name that comes up during the process ends up in the lawsuit. The county's involved in that also. We've already been dismissed from one lawsuit. We believe there's no merit in the other lawsuits, so we believe that as time goes on, we and the county will be dismissed. The Four Lakes Task Force was not the owner of the dams. The county was not the owner of the dams. And in fact, if there was a lawsuit brought in, it would actually be a lawsuit against the property owners, against the Special Assessment District. And we don't believe any of the legal firms out there will want to do that. So we think over time, all these lawsuits will be disappearing for the Four Lakes Task Force.
Will the cost be distributed over the entire county or just lake properties?
The special assessment districts are set up for the lake property owners. There's a very similar model over in Wiggins Lake. where they have a special assessment. In fact, their assessment is going to be voted on to be increased a bit because they also have some repairs that are needed because of the storm. But while all of Gladwin County and people in Michigan can use our lakes when there's a DNR opportunity and a launch to get on, it was decided that the special assessment districts would be for the property owners.
Can you please explain legal lake levels?
Well, again, we talked about that earlier before the special assessment District 307, and you all can Google that. You can look at on 307 on the state of Michigan property legal lake levels, and it'll pop up. It's about 2 or 3 pages. I actually have it here in my binder. So before last year, when the court mandated the legal lake levels, the lake levels were set by FERC. So if FERC is no longer in charge of the hydropower that's being operated on the dams, there's no licenses anymore. There is actually no legal lake level on Secord Lake or the other lakes. The special assessment district, one of the key reasons you don't want to unravel from the special assessment district is because you will lose that legal lake level for Secord Lake. We need to maintain that. That's the only legal thing we have that says we all deserve to have a beautiful lake again.
Dave Kepler talked a lot about that in our prior meeting, and that is in the transcript if people want to take a look at that. What is the confidence level to acquire ownership of the dams?
I would have to say our confidence level is very positive. Again, we're moving forward in the condemnation of necessity, and hopefully we'll have that situation evolving through the court system very quickly.
In another presentation, an accountant told us that the SAD assessment would be spread over 6 or 10 years. Clearly, that comment by the accountant was wrong, as you are talking in the 20 to 40-year term with bonds.
I was not aware of a 6-year bond that the Four Lakes Task Force was ever looking for. I believe it was always 20 years. And again, because of the increase in cost and everything and making the dams safer so that they have a 75-plus year lifespan, we're looking to spread it out over to a 30 or a 40-year bond to make it more affordable for all of us that live here.
I agree. I don't think we've ever, I don't know where the accountant mentioned 6 years. I don't think I remember ever hearing that.
Okay, there's another question about legal lake levels that I'm not going to read because it's already answered. Another question about the lawsuits, which you already answered. Another question about legal lake level. Why can't these meetings and Zoom meetings be posted in the Gladwin newspaper?
Joel is a Gladwin newspaper man. I'll let him answer that. Right from the comfort chair or whatever. Comfy chair.
Well, in looking at the Gladwin newspaper, which is a great resource for our community, they don't have a community calendar. Actually, that's something I've been asking them to do for years. We did at one time in the paper have a community calendar, and it could be posted there. So if the Secord Lake Association wanted to put that in there, they certainly could do there, but there is a charge to do that. So that could be why we're not seeing that. And then also, if you look at the distribution throughout the county, we're still going to be missing a heck of a lot of people that don't receive the newspaper.
And keep in mind, the person who asked that question obviously has internet connection. They can go to our Secord Lake Association website, and all of our meeting dates are posted there all the way through October. So please take a look at that.
And the same for Four Lakes Task Force. There was a post that I put out recently on Facebook, but it's available on the Four Lakes Task Force site that shows the upcoming Zoom meetings that are going to be happening for Smallwood, for Secord, for Wixom, and for Sanford.
And just add on to that, August 5th. I think, yeah, it's August 5th is the Secord meeting. So, yeah, take a look at that. That's going to, what we're trying to do, and the Four Lakes Task Force and your association realizes the communication has been poor, and we're trying to up the game. That's all I can say. So you're going to see a lot of these. Wish it was different than Zoom, but you know, it is what it is. And
I've got it right here for marking your calendar.
Yeah. Go ahead, Joe. Go. Yeah.
So again, this is the posting that I put out under Mark Your Calendar. So the Secord Lake residents, that meeting is going to be on Monday, August 10th.
Oh, it's 10th. Okay.
And the Smallwood Lake residents, it's going to be on Monday, August 24th. And anyone is welcome. These are public lake meetings. They will be at 3 p.m. They will also be recorded, and they will be available on the Four Lakes Task Force soon after they are completed.
Yeah, it's not August 5th, then it's August 10th, sorry.
Okay, you already answered this, but I'll ask it again. Will your newsletter only go to your members or to all Secord Lake owners?
Well, first of all, we're not doing newsletters at a regular basis. We're going to try to. It's just too expensive. You know, I asked the Eagles just gave up their newsletter here first of the year or something like that.
February.
Yeah, it was February, and I asked them why, and they told me what they were paying every time they sent it out, and it's in the thousands. So it's very hard to send newsletters out now. I wish we could, but if we did send one out, because we are a new organization, we would try to send out the whole lake community. I think at this point, because of what's going on, I think we're going to try to reach out to the whole community, not just the membership.
And aren't we talking too about trying to do an email?
Yeah, it's been advised. I've had some people that said, why don't you try to get emails for the whole lake community, because we could send out emails in a massive way, and I'd have to ask Sandy, but she knows how to do it. They send emails like to our membership gets emails, and it would be nice if our whole lake would get those, but we don't know how to get everybody's email. If you're not a member, that's another reason to become a member. We can shoot emails out, but I'm not sure where we stand with if you're not a member of our association as far as email. We don't want to infringe on somebody that maybe don't want to email from us. That would be, again, people might get mad about that, so we can't just go and collect your emails. It would have to be a volunteer thing. But we're looking at that, actually, to reach out to our whole lake community somehow in a better way.
Could I make a comment on that too?
Joel.
Just to put a little teaser out there about the newsletter, Phil and I and Mark Mudge had the opportunity to meet with the groups. Like I said, we've been going around and talking with groups. And this is a group that included several of the business people right here on Secord Lake. And they are fully supporting the Four Lakes Task Force and what we're doing. And because of the cost of getting a newsletter out, everybody felt that was important. They're going to be donating money to help defray the cost of that newsletter. So those business people will be announced in the newsletter, as well as, just to make everybody aware, your Secord Township Board is fully supportive of the Four Lakes Task Force, and the Barrett Township Board is fully in support of the Four Lakes Task Force. So just want to let everybody know there's a lot of support out for the Four Lakes Task Force, and thank you for that. We're working hard. I think I've been doing 16 hours a day for the last 3 weeks now, so we're all working to get our lake back as quickly as possible.
Well, I think we're kind of winding down. A lot of the questions that are coming up have already been asked, but one of the questions, and I got to scroll back and find it.
And I told you 8:30, so we're 10 minutes over, so we can only go with another one question maybe, and then I'm gonna wrap up, I think.
Okay, and let me just say that there are several people that are commenting and thanking you both for your time and your work on this. So I just want you to know that. So the last question then will be, why can't the state of Michigan own the dams rather than having the counties being responsible?
Well, I was in on this for a couple of years now, so I can answer that. I think everybody's aware of the state of Michigan, the way the DNR feels, and the way the DEQ, or the now Eagle, feels. Not so much the state of Michigan, but part of the state of Michigan doesn't even want dams anymore. So I don't think we want them to own our dam, nor do they have interest in it. In fact, they have interest in tearing dams down, basically. So we're fighting to keep our lake. And so that's been out. We've approached the consumer power for ownership. They didn't want to own a dam. So we tried several different ways to do this. And actually the best way was take ownership ourselves into the county. And we're still on track on that. So we feel, we have approached other groups to try to see if they were interested in ownership. And basically, no, they're not.
Okay.
So that's it. We can wrap up. I just want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank Sandy, Secora, and Rita Lewis again for their IT help and all the work they do. Thank you for listening. I hope we were able to answer most of your questions. And
I don't know if you wanted to say anything about that.
just remember, we're having elections in August. You'll be seeing things on our website about that. And the Secord Lake Association feels the best way forward simply is with the Four Lakes Task Force. It's done. I know we've spent a lot of money, Four Lakes Task Force has, but it's been spent for research with engineering, legal, and everything. We have everything in place to take possession of these dams. Obviously now we have complications that have occurred, but we're working hard to solve those. We all want to bring the lake back. I think everybody, I don't care what group you support, but we all have a common goal. We want water back. But I think the most important thing for our lake community, and I think everybody would agree, we want to do it in a responsible and safe way. And basically my last statement will be, I really hope we can get past this bickering and all unite, because what we want is our lake back. I think everybody would agree, and I just hope we can accomplish that as we unite and come together. And thank you for being there tonight. Good night. What?
That's right. So I have up on the screen how you can get in touch with us.
Okay.
Via our website, our email, our Facebook page,
Okay.
and all the names of our board members.
Okay.
I'll leave that up for a few minutes.
All right. You heard Sandy, so thank you. Good night.
Thanks for watching, and make sure you hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video. Also make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next videos I will be posting, and leave your questions, comments, and suggestions below. As always, I just want to give a massive thanks to the people who support me on Patreon. Never underestimate the value of your contribution to keeping this channel going. Thank you.